Today we're here to interview Stephanie Neer Schoap. Neer is your maiden name. And I'm Luann Littleton Stoltz, and we have Alan Schiffer. And we are doing these little conversations with our alum from South Salem High School in anticipation of our 50th reunion, which would have been in 2020, but we had a little hiccup with 2020 that lots of people had hiccups with. And so we are hoping to have it this coming fall in September. And Alan, why don't you talk a little bit about our anticipated date and some of the contact information that people can learn more about this?
All right, be delighted to, and the two of you keep me honest here because you know more than I do here. So we have a great Saxon reunion committee in Salem that's organizing things, and we've got September 18th and September 19th for two primary events. One through our classmate Lee Racky at Gilgamesh. I think that's going to be on the Saturday, the 18th. And the next event is with our classmate Jan Barnes, and she and her husband own Willamette Valley Vineyard. So we're having an event there. So there'll be more information. I encourage you to go to at the website, the class website, which is, let's say, Steph, what's our?
SouthSalem70.com.
Okay, SouthSalem70.com. Yeah. Perfect. So anyway, yeah, definitely encourage that. Thanks for arranging this, Luann, and Steph, great to see you as always, and always appreciate all that you're doing on behalf of the reunion and getting back together here.
For sure.
Thanks.
So Stephanie, why don't you start talking a little bit about what your experiences were in Salem as a child? I think you grew up in Salem, is that right?
Pretty much. So I was born in Portland, and then my dad had a job in Dallas, Oregon. He was an engineer. And so when I was after the first grade, moved to Salem. And from then on, I went to Morningside. And so after that, I went to Judson, and then I went to South. So there were people that I knew all the way from grade school. And it's really fun. I knew Lenny Thomas and Glenn Art, and I don't know who all, but a lot of those people I went all the way from grade school to high school with.
I have to interrupt here for a minute and find out if you know the Morningside fight song.
We're gonna fight.
There is one, huh?
Morningside.
Yeah, there is a Morningside fight song, and I only know that because I was married to Mike Hefty for a number of years, and he used to sing that all the time.
Okay.
Which is All Hail Morningside.
Oh yeah, all hail Morningside. All hail Morningside. We are proud for you. We are proud to do our best for you.
There you
go. And see, I do remember it.
Very good. Very good.
You can tell I'm a quite shy person. So.
Yes. I thought if I just gave you that little stimulus, you would remember.
I would remember it. Yes. I had a lot of fun growing up with friends. I added friends in junior high. I met Barb Johnson, Mary Sletton. Well, she was Mary Mankey, and then she's been Mary Sletton for many years, and Emily Marcus and Barb, who is now Barb Thompson, but she was Barb Norton.
Yep.
Anyway, a lot of people, and it's just fun to go all the way through school and have that continuity when you go into another school, and then you meet a whole lot more people in a big school like South. And I know that Ramsey was talking about what a great education we had at South, and I echo that. We had so many opportunities. They did give you a chance to sign up for they kind of had tracked classes, so you could sign up for a level that you would be comfortable in. And I read mythology and so many wonderful things and math, but I have to say that probably my highlights were chemistry with Mr. Burrell.
Mm-hmm.
He made chemistry so fun, and he would light things and then he'd say, "Okay, girls, ooh, ah." And I was also a TA for Mr. Burrell in the 11th grade, and met another friend of mine who I've reconnected with, David Hackelman, who was a senior. And Mr. Burrell sent both of us on to degrees in chemistry. So I went from South, then I went to Willamette University, and I got this dynamite professor named Dr. Frances Chappell, who weighed about 98 pounds dripping wet. She was so tiny and she was just so fun. And once I had those two teachers, my mind was made up because it was so interesting. And then the other thing at South that I loved so much was music. And we got Gary Frame, and I don't think he was really much older than we were. I think he had just graduated, but he was an awesome pianist, an awesome musician. And I was in some of the singing groups like Southern Airs. I loved to be in some of those musicals that we did. We did Oklahoma, we did My Fair Lady. Those are just big memories. And also in the small groups. And then I even took voice lessons from him one summer.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was taking piano, and my piano teacher, bless her little heart, went to Oregon State and decided that all piano lessons should be group lessons, which made every piano lesson a recital. And at that point, I started getting stomach aches on Monday because I was in class with Christine Hatfield, and you just can't go to class with Christine Hatfield. And
what a talent.
yes. So I begged my mom, and she let me switch to singing, which I always loved. And I've actually been in a choir in church or some kind of choir since the 5th grade. So that's been a really big part of my life. And then at Willamette, I went there and had a degree in chemistry, managed to get the last course was biochemistry with Dr. Hudak, which was a wonderful course. I love organic chemistry. That's the one that I loved, it's the chemistry of life. And it was wonderful studying that. And I also took voice lessons at Willamette and choir and classical guitar. And so by the time I finished, I actually finished in early because I had so many extra credits from music along the way. And after I graduated from Willamette, I had a degree in chemistry, and I went to work for a while. I was working all the way, part of the time for Capital Medical Lab as a lab assistant for them, right just down the street from Willamette. And then I decided I wanted to go to Eugene and maybe go to med tech school, which is a school where you learn to be a laboratory scientist. So I moved to Eugene and worked for Bohemia Lumber Corporation as a chemist for a while, but it wasn't really high tech. And then I went into Sacred Heart Hospital School, got my chemistry, the med tech, and then you take a national certification. And my career from then on, I worked in the lab, but I also wanted to be able to do other things. And when you work in a lab and you work with nurses, seems like a lot of the opportunities for growth go to nurses. So you're kind of pigeonholed in the lab. I applied for some epidemiology jobs and didn't get them. I knew the microbiology, and the nurses know the clinical part. So I decided to go back and get an MBA. And by that time, we had moved to Portland. And so I was working for Kaiser Permanente, and they gave you a stipend for a degree program. So I went to Portland State and got an MBA. And from there, I progressed within Kaiser into finance and then data analysis, which I loved. And it was a great company. I'm still proud of what they do.
Mhm.
So that's my career. Do you guys have any questions?
So what kind of data analysis did you do for Kaiser?
So Kaiser Permanente Northwest is a leader of all the Kaiser regions in data. And they had data systems for imaging, lab, radiology, and they were the first large corporation to finally persuade the Kaiser Permanente organization to go for EPIC, which is the electronic medical record. And since then, OHSU and Providence, and I'm not sure who else, have all gone for EPIC. But so because we had all those data systems and they went back way far into history, we had chart records of people that most people had paper charts. Our paper charts kept going until we started with EPIC, I think in maybe 1996. But before that, we already had lab imaging on computers, so we could find out who had mammograms. I'm typing, can you tell? Who had what lab tests, so we could track the diabetics. We could track whether women got their MAMs, whether women got their PAPs from cytology data. And so I worked mainly in health outcomes, and it's called Hedis. And Hedis is something that measures corporations kind of like Kaiser, Mayo Clinic, Group Health up in Seattle, the big, large HMOs. And they measure you on how well you take care of your populations. So they write measures, you read the specs, you find the data, and then you turn it in once a year and you get graded on that. And then, so that was a really fun job because I love math and I love chemistry. And so it was always like kind of finding all the little parts and finding the billing and all of that stuff to be able to put together and find all the women if we were looking for women who had had MAMs and to meet our goals.
And so did you do a lot of actual computer programming then?
I wasn't in IT.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a language called SAS, which is a mathematical language. And so when you're doing those measures, you're going out to the different databases and you're doing a call to bring in the data. So if I wanted to find women who had MAMs, I would go into the imaging system and find the population of women ages, 52 to 69, and then you have to exclusions, for example, if they'd had mastectomies.
Mm-hmm.
So you find those. And then when you turn that into Hedis, it's just basically a numerator and denominator. There's no personal data on that. You turn in the statistics. They would come in and audit us. And then we had to prove to them. They would say, well, find this person and prove to us that person fits in your population.
And actually exists, kind of thing.
Same thing for diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really fascinating. I loved that job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really the kind of job I always wanted because I wanted to do projects. And that's where the lab kind of fell down, is you didn't really have the autonomy to decide when you wanted to do what. Of course, it's a life and death thing in the lab. And whereas working is in that program of quality control, quality measures, you could kind of decide within your scope when you wanted to do something. And I also worked laterally with a lot of clinical people, nurses and doctors, and it was really a great job. I loved it.
Well, it's really important work too, Steph. I mean, so we all know and appreciate that probably more over time, but what you were doing on the front edge, or that leading edge of really trying to make some of the things we've known about health to make it more scientific and database, that's great. And it sounds like it was really rewarding.
It was. We also developed, personal measures that doctors could say, well, who did I miss? And so we could actually give a person level report to a doctor and say, look, this person was in, and you didn't discuss whether they needed a MAM or not. So we were able to feed back to them. And of course, they want to be excellent. So I would have people call me up and say, I know I had 100%. Give me my report.
Oh, that's great. Well, along the way, tell us about your family.
Okay. So I have 2 daughters and they're grown now. One is is a professional musician. She's the principal violist for the opera. And she's also one of the violists in the Portland Baroque Orchestra.
Wow.
And so both girls, we gave them music lessons and tried to be there like my folks had been for every concert, everything they did. And Ellie, my younger daughter, just, you'd take her to a concert and she'd fall asleep. So obviously that was not her bent. And so she went also to Willamette and got a double major in Spanish and psychology, and then went on to become an occupational therapist. And she works with children right now at Randall. And then my other daughter, the older one, Hillary, went to UC Santa Barbara and then to Rice and got a master's in viola performance at Rice.
Wow.
So, and they have little boys. Ellie has one little boy and Hillary has two little boys. And they live about 10 minutes away. And we do a lot of things together. And that's also just a wonderful, fulfilling thing in life.
What a blessing that is.
Have that family together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess I wanted to tell you a little bit hobbies too, because my mother was a photographer and I loved family photography. And then once I retired, I bought some fancier cameras and I've been really enjoying that as a hobby. And also my husband, Mike, who passed away in 2000 from cancer, so I miss him. But he went down and joined the tennis club in Portland called Portland Athletic Club. And he comes home and he says, Steph, your relative's down there. And so I go down there and here's my dad's cousin, Jack Neer, who played at Wimbledon and played in the US Open. And so I started taking lessons from Jack and people would say, well, he's your relative. Do you pay him? Yes, I do pay him.
No, he's one of the best players ever to come out of the Northwest. He really is.
Yeah.
And a standout. Everything I heard about him was
his uncles too. His dad and his uncle went to Stanford and had great careers in tennis. And Jack was undefeated in high school and college. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody's ever broken that record in Portland.
Right.
So that's been a really fun thing. I used to be a swimmer when I was in high school, and tennis is so much more fun because it's social. You meet people, you laugh and try to get better. So that's been just a really fun hobby.
Well, that sounds, thanks for sharing all that stuff. That's great. And are you planning on coming to the union?
Definitely.
Definitely.
And I lost my husband, and my friend Dave Hackelman that I met in chemistry in the 11th grade lost his wife. And so we've been dating, and I think he'll come with me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So Mr. Burrell was, back there in high school.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That is great. That's
yeah.
Thanks for hearing that, Steph. That really is.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really a happy thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you sharing your story with us today, Steph, and we look forward to seeing you at the reunion. And one more time, what's the website that people can go to register for information?
SouthSalem70.com.
Yes, very good.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing everybody on September 18th, 2021. And thanks very much for meeting with us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.
Thank you.